Normal Redditors that dated a celebrity, what was it like? Back when they were still a small bar band, my mother had drinks with the cult. The lead singer had told her he was in a band, but she didn't believe him, so when they played Wildflower that night, he dedicated the song to her. That little monster kid from the first Mad Max lived next door to us as kids and constantly chased my sister around trying to kiss her. One of my dad's close friends is Jim Carrey's first wife. Apparently he turned into kind of a dick when he got famous Shock 8 nanograms. I know, I remember a decade or so again when the grown kids band was trying to make a living with their music. She really want Jim to help them get bookings and stuff and he was all they need to make it on their own. Then he got a new girlfriend who told him to help his kid out and he did. First wife is still salty about that. My mom dated Keanu Reeves back in high school. She broke up with him because he was too focused on his band with his friends at the time. If only. My mom had a dinner date with George Clooney in the 90s. She didn't really say much apart from the fact that he's an interesting and charismatic guy, but she honestly didn't think he was going to blow up. This thread has taught me that as an aunt I really need to up my dating game so my nibblings will have better stories. My uncle hooked me up to see Foreigner in 1981, including 2 backstage passes. I took a girl I really liked but she ended up meeting Mick Jones and disappearing with him into a dressing room. I didn't see her again that night, so I guess you could say I got f***ed by Mick Jones. Her side of the story was that she went with him into another room where people were drinking and smoking, and he ignored her after that. She said she stayed there 20 minutes. Then left and couldn't find me, and I had ditched her. So just to be clear, I'm not accusing Mick of doing anything inappropriate. That's her story and her mother believed it enough to call my mother to complain about it. So yeah, that's what must have happened. Probably too late for this, but about 15 years ago, when the show The Simple Life, with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie was popular, I made out with Paris Hilton at a nightclub in Baltimore. Essentially, they were filming them doing all sorts of random jobs around the country and staying with local families, all for the culture clash laughs. One of those families ended up being my friend and her family. Being a close friend, and a well-known admirer of Paris at the time, I was invited over and got to hang with her and Nicole Richie a good amount while they were in town. Both of them were super sweet, and a lot smarter than they played for the camera. Paris was a great kisser and this story is always a hit with my friends. A few months later, her phone was hacked and nudes were leaked. My number was in her phone book and I got spammed with prank calls from 4chan, or something. I imagine it was a lot worse for anyone who was actually famous. Anyhow, basically lost total contact after that, but still a fun story. John Krasinski liked my Venmo donation to his charity, so it's basically like we're dating. Not me, but my cousin dumped Elvis Stoico figure skater before he became a thing to date the guy who became her husband. She always found it weird to see him in the Olympics. Hooked up with a chick who was in a soap opera a few times. Didn't know it at the time but recognized her when I was at my grandmother's and she had her show playing. Hey grandma, that's the girl I f***ed the other day. Damn, I'm so late and I know this will get buried, but when my mom's aunt died they were going through her stuff and found a picture of her sitting on JFK's lap. No one knew anything about it. My cousin was hit on by Shaq at a festival. When she pointed out that he was married, he allegedly said, "I'm Muslim, I'm allowed to have many wives." I have a friend whose great-great-grandma was in a relationship with Joseph Stalin. If her family is still around, the breakup couldn't have been too bad. A family friend's mom went clubbing with Lady Gaga. Afterwards, Gaga asked if she knew who she was. Friend's mom had no idea. My mother dated Judd Nelson back when he was relevant. She said he was kind of a prick once she got to know him better, but his parents were cool. Weirdly, my family now lives like 10 minutes from his parents' place in Maine. My friend's aunt went on a blind date with Gerard Butler. Circa 300 the movie, not the year. There was a big miscommunication, because he was looking for a hookup and she's a kindly French-Canadian woman in her 50s. But they both had a laugh about it and enjoyed supper with each other. She said he was very kind, and very muscular. So what the happened? Did he clap cheeks or nah? Not a date. Per se, but I had a nice quiet dinner with Samantha Fox in her hotel room in Toronto in the 80s. She was in town for a show and I was attached to her security detail. She asked me to eat with her because she didn't want to go out but hated eating alone. Sweet girl. Kinda sad too. Lonely. A few years ago I was getting on a flight back to San Diego after my cousin's wedding. I was very hungover and judging people as I walked to my gate. I see this long-haired man stride by me in a purple button-down and think, who's this cupcake? Not a sexuality comment, just a shirt color comment. As he walks by I realize, holy shit, that's Fabio. A bit later, after getting a snack, my brazen and probably still drunk self saw him sitting at his gate and just sat down next to him. I look away, then right at him and say, "You're Fabio," and he says so coolly, "Yes I am," and shakes my hand. We proceeded to talk for 30 minutes until he had to leave. He was so intelligent. Discussed cancer therapies in depth. And I recall thinking, just nod and smile, Fabio is way smarter than you, just nod and smile. Before leaving he asked for my number and texted me the next day for a date. Nothing ever came of it, but I still have his number in my phone. My dad followed up for weeks to make sure I wasn't dating the man on every romance novel cover. My friend's sister-in-law was out jogging when some other random dude came up and jogged with her and talked with her about random stuff like the movie being filmed nearby at the time for a bit. After a bit of that, he said, "Oh, by the way, I hope you like the movie." They were filming The Force Awakens and she only realized later that it was Harrison Ford. Not me, but my aunt dated Matthew McConaughey before he was famous. He ended up getting invited to her wedding to my normal uncle, and proceeded to pass out drunk in the back of my family's car. He refused to leave, and now my dad refuses to watch his movies. My old English teacher is good friends with Serj Tankian, lead singer of System of a Down, and she always talked about having coffee with him, and I'm still jealous to this day. My wife briefly dated Louis C.K. back in 2012. She says it seems kind of awful to be famous. Anytime they went out to eat or were in public they were just constantly interrupted or stared at. He came to her birthday party at some little bowling alley in Brooklyn though and was pretty cool. The story that always sticks with me is that one day he went out and bought a $150,000 watch because he felt sad. I matched with Chloe Moretz on Bumble once, but then I said I liked her in Dark Shadows and she ghosted. A friend of mine banged Matthew McConaughey. She's a costumer in Hollywood and was hanging out in the bar at Chateau Marmont when Matt comes up to her and says, "How about you and me walk 30 feet and get naked?" Her initial response was lol no, but by the end of the night her friends convinced her she had to do it. This was peak 2000s Matt when he was ripped and constantly shirtless. So she went up to his room at the hotel and they banged. Apparently it was sweaty, mostly from behind, and he preferred to watch them, mostly him, in the mirror. Same girl also dated McGee from NCIS, but apparently he was a total sweetheart. Friend of mine dated Brad Pitt in college. 2 or 3 dates if I remember correctly. I went to a different school, but remember meeting him when I went to visit my friend. One of my friend's dad's friends is a plumber and got called to do a job for Doug Pitt, Brad's brother. Well, Brad just happened to be visiting when plumber guy showed up. Plumber guy introduced himself to Doug, who is kind of a hometown celebrity, philanthropist, etc. Then looked at Brad, and jokingly said, "Ah, you must be Doug's brother." Brad didn't find that too funny. Not me, but my uncle dated the singer Pink in high school for a little while. They went to Central Bucks in Pennsylvania. Pretty neat fun fact, but it always feels a little awkward when someone brings it up at gatherings because he is happily married now. This is also why I don't have any stories to share. Apparently she was super chill and down to earth. My uncle was the type of kid to create napalm in his backyard and set the neighbor's pool on fire, etc. So I've always imagined she probably acted similar at the time, but I could be way wrong. My college roommate's cousin, I believe, went on a date, maybe multiple dates, with Armie Hammer before he blew up in The Social Network, and apparently he forgot all about the dates they went on, and when he tried to reintroduce himself to her at another encounter, she said something along the lines of, "I know, we used to date." Pretty sure the guy is married now. My aunt kissed Gordon Lightfoot in a bathroom at one of his concerts. I'm guessing there was probably more, but she didn't elaborate. She probably went down like the Edmund Fitzgerald. My aunt was married to Van Morrison briefly. Here they are together on this album artwork. No interesting stories that I could remember. They were in love, but he was always gone, so it didn't work out. I was told that he would play guitar for the family on Christmas get-togethers. A friend of my aunt's dated Shel Silverstein for a bit. Apparently he was a bit of a dick. Have it on very good authority he was creep. Not said authority, but friend of mine has an unpublished poem of his. He was in a coffee shop writing like crazy on a legal pad. Crumpled the paper and threw it away. She grabbed it out of the trash. There was a poem on the front and back. Not a romantic date in the least, but I had dinner once at a Japanese restaurant in a group setting with Leonardo DiCaprio while he was in Louisiana filming Django Unchained. He wanted to know what college was like and was asking us all about our lives. He also let me try his udon. It was my first ever Instagram post. He really is such a nice guy in the limelight, and in real life it felt like we were hanging out with our friend. Salma Hayek is my dad's childhood friend. They grew up together in Coatzacoalcos, Veracruz. They never dated, but they have remained acquaintances if not friends. I never believed him they were friends until one day we ran into her in the airport and she invited us for dinner. She is a really nice person and a lot of fun to hang out with. Not dated for any of these stories, but semi-related. My mom went to a party with Janis Joplin. She said she was wild, funny, but crude, and smelled like she hadn't showered or brushed her teeth in weeks. Janis Joplin died not long after. I went to university in Westchester, PA. Seeing Bam Margera, Ryan Dunn, and crew was a relatively common sight. The first time I saw them was the same night I got the call from my parents telling me that my family dog was put down very old, very sick. My friends took me out drinking and we ran into Bam and crew. Bam asked why I was down, and when I told him, he bought my drinks for the rest of the night. I went out bar hopping with them a few times after that. They were nice, but wild. Could never quite prepare myself for a night out with them. Ryan was as kind as could be and absolutely hilarious. I had an English teacher that went on a date with Mark Hamill just after filming Star Wars in the 70s. She said he was a nice guy and was very humble. He said he was a small-time actor and said he had just finished a new movie that he thought might be successful. They only went out once and she never heard from him again. Saw him in Star Wars a few months later and had her mind blown. Years ago at a hotel bar party I saw Alicia Cuthbert. Sent a bottle of vodka to her table. Upon learning it was me who sent it, she motioned me over to her table, promptly asked me if I was a drug dealer, told me I was dressed like a bum, and sent me back to my table with my bottle of vodka. That was my date with Alicia. I guess we just weren't meant to be. My aunt went on a date with Jimmy Buffett. She said he picked her up, stopped at a gas station, bought a jar of pickles and then drove to the beach. They ate pickles and he took her home. Little did she know he went on many dates like this, slowly eating each of the components of a cheeseburger on each subsequent date. Charlize Theron flirted with me when I was an extra in her first movie. She was a nobody and had a really small role. Then her makeup or assistant told me I was lucky for that. I was shy and backed away because it was odd having a girl hit so hard on me. So yeah. My wife's aunt David Hasselhoff 30-odd years ago. She worked in the television industry. She is now a lesbian. He hassled her off a little too hard. My mom lived in Key West in the early mid-80s. She dated Sting for a while. He had a really nice yacht and they went on a sailing trip during which he realized my mom is psycho she is. He ended it right after. Sometimes to mess with my dad I'll start singing Roxanne or Message in a Bottle.